Hey guys, and welcome to today's video. My name is Melissa Joyce, and thank you so much for joining me today. Today we are going to be talking about beauty sponges, blending sponges, foundation sponges, all kinds of sponges. Actually, we're going to be talking about 3 different kinds and comparing them. And the reason that I'm talking about this today is in our April BoxyCharm box, I was thrilled to open it and see that we had received 3 pure blending sponges in that box. I was so excited to have these. I was looking for replacements and I was just so excited to get started using these. And previous to that, I had bought myself a Real Technique sponge, and before that, and don't judge me on how old and raggedy this sponge is, my first blending makeup sponge that I had was the original Beauty Blender, and you can see how loved this is. So I thought what I would do instead of just reviewing the pure ones is talk to you a little bit about my thoughts about all of these, sort of rank them a little bit, and tell you sort of the process that I went through when I was using these different sponges. The first makeup sponge that I had ever bought, I bought this not that long ago. I want to say a year ago or so. I have said this before, I am somewhat of a makeup newbie. I've used makeup my whole life, but it's only been about the last 2 years or so that I've really gotten into watching makeup tutorials and really improving how I do my makeup. So I bought myself this Beauty Blender at Sephora. This is an expensive little one in Canada, but you watch any makeup tutorials and you want one of these. And just immediately it made my foundation look so flawless. This has been around since 2002, 2003, not this one specifically, although it looks like it, but Beauty Blender as a product. It was founded by Rianne Silva. She's done makeup on all kinds of people, and this was the product. It's won all kinds of awards, and there are now just a whole bunch of Beauty Blender products, different colors, different sizes. There's just all kinds of things. This is the original one. This should be like a hot pink, but as I said, it's old and it's gotten to the point where no matter how much I wash it, it is kind of stained and getting a little ripped up. So tried this. It just makes my foundation beautiful. I've used it in a couple of different ways. I will use it, you know, how you see people usually mention, which is tapping. I know a lot of people use the bottom of it for that. I've always been somebody who kind of uses the side. It just gives me a little bit more room, and I can sort of tap and also, you know, push over like that. And sometimes I'll even sheer out a foundation by pulling it, sort of shearing it a little bit instead of the tapping motion, or a combination of both. But I just really, I mean, it is so soft, it is so wonderful, and it's just airbrushed, flawless, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. I don't need to sell you on this. It's iconic at this point, the Beauty Blender. So about 2 months ago, I decided this was just getting to the point where I had to get something else to use. And if you also watch YouTube a lot, then you'll see Real Technique sponges being used all the time. And I thought, okay, that is quite a bit more affordable. I can go and find it at a drugstore, and you know, it's going to save me just so much over the Beauty Blender. So I went and got myself the Real Technique sponge. You know, it does feel soft. I mean, it's just so hard to describe the difference in softness. It just feels a little bit like this has the same consistency all the way through, and this one just feels like it's got a little bit more denseness to it, but I thought that's okay. I've seen everybody talk about Real Technique sponges and that they're basically the same thing, even if they don't feel exactly the same. Now, the first thing that I noticed the difference between these two was how it held on to water. So what I usually do with my Beauty Blender is I will soak it under water, squeeze it a few times to get the water into there. I'll then squeeze it really hard to get the water out, and then I will usually sort of wrap it in a clean bath towel and squeeze a couple times again, just so, you know, there's never, it is soft and it's slightly damp, but it doesn't feel like there's any water in there, and it definitely doesn't feel like you can squeeze any water out of it. With the Real Technique sponge, I found I had to keep squeezing and keep squeezing and keep squeezing, get the water out again after I'd soaked it. And then I had to squeeze it really hard in my towel to get it to a point where it didn't feel like I was going, even now, I feel like if I squeeze this enough, I could probably get a drop of water out of here. It just seems like this wants to hold the moisture inside it more than the Beauty Blender does, if that makes any sense. So I know some people really love the flat part of this, and I do find, again, it's fine, but I just really like the sort of lightly curved side here in order to get on my skin. Now what I do find, and it looks like it's such a subtle difference, but for me it makes a difference, I have a bit of a funny eye shape. I'm gonna zoom you in to show you this. So whereas a lot of people have eyes that kind of come down and around, I have this piece of skin here that comes over. So a lot of people's eyes are a little bit more like this, where you know, they could sort of draw eyeliner all the way around if they wanted to, but I have this bit that comes down here. And you know, some people have it, some people don't, but I find it makes it a little bit harder to get product here into the corner of my eye. With the Beauty Blender, it somehow fits very nicely into that little corner of my eye if I'm doing this for my concealer, under my eye, or even powdering afterwards. There's something about the tip on the Real Technique sponge that it's a little bit fatter coming into the tip, and I just find that it doesn't fit there quite so well, and these just don't have the right angle to get in there either. So just something about the shape of it, because this has a little bit more of a sharp point to it, on my eye shape at least, works a little bit better for getting under the eye. Now I have to say I would even be okay with that, but there is something about this, and I feel like it's gonna have to be a little bit of a take my word for it sort of thing, where I feel like this does not absorb any of the foundation, it just puts it very nicely onto my face. And I find with the Real Technique sponge, it moves it around a little bit more. It's like if I go over and then go over again, it gets just a little bit patchier. And I feel like I didn't want to believe myself that I saw that, because so many people love this so much and say there's no difference. But I just feel like the application I get with this is just a little bit more patchy than the application that I get with the original Beauty Blender. And I just feel like I don't have good makeup days with this as much as I do with this. So that I found to be a little disappointing, and I sort of kept going back to my Raggedy Beauty Blender on days where I knew I really wanted a good foundation application. And I just find that I don't use the cutout side as much, but that's personal preference. So after having the Real Technique sponge for probably about a month, I was thrilled when I opened my April BoxyCharm box and saw 3 of these. These 2 are sort of damp right now, this one isn't, so these 3 blending sponges sitting on top of the box, and I thought that is amazing. I mean, first of all, for me, Pure as a brand is a brand that I don't think gets enough credit. I find that I really like a lot of their products that I have tried, but they're sort of somewhere in that no man's land between, in Canada at least, they're not at Sephora, so they don't kind of get that Sephora buzz that a lot of people get when they're shopping the sales or getting things there, but they're not a drugstore brand either. Here in Canada, if you're looking for Pure products, they're available at Shoppers Drug Marts. So it is in our drugstore, but it's kind of in the high-end part of the drugstore, and I'll put a link down below to my What a Canadian Drugstore Looks Like video, I should say, so that you can see we sort of have like our high-end part, and you can actually get like Benefit and Smashbox and all the rest of it, and you'll kind of find Pure in that area as well, although kind of in the not quite so high-end area, but it's not in the drugstore area, so it's kind of in between. So it tends to be a little overlooked, but all the products that I've tried by Pure I quite like. I've tried their bronzer, I've tried one of their lip lacquers, and if you watch the Taylor, you'll see that she loves one of the Pure foundations. So I do think Pure is a really good brand. So I saw these and thought, awesome, I'm going to have 3 amazing blending sponges. And I don't feel that way. I would actually rank these a little bit less than the Real Techniques. So in a lot of ways, they almost look like they don't have a similar shape. It's a different place where the cutout is. But if this is slightly, I would say this is as soft as the Beauty Blender, but in a different kind of way. This is hard. Like, it's super hard when you first get the little sponge. If you ever have a Beauty Blender that hasn't been soaked yet, it still feels quite soft. This is like hard as a rock. I mean, it's nice that it matches my nail polish, but it is hard. And even when you soak it underwater, it still doesn't have a huge amount to give. Like, you go to use this on your face and it feels like you're hitting your face with it. As far as the shape goes, there is no part of this that will get close to that inner corner of my eye because the cutout takes out the point. And if I try to use this part, it's too wide. And if I try to use this part, it just doesn't really get in there. So the shape of this does not do it for me. Not only that, like, they put their logo as a sort of engraved, and I'll show you on the dry one because it shows up a little better. If you can see that, oh, there we go. Their logo is a cutout in there. So when I go to use my favorite part of the sponge for blending, there's a part in there that is not flush with everything else. I mean, it's not super noticeable once you've got it. Sorry, it's not super noticeable once you've got it all, you know, inflated, I should say, or soaked. But you can still see a little bit there of where the logo comes through. So the bottom of this is probably the best for blending because it's actually a very flat sort of surface there, even though it's rounded. But again, it doesn't feel nice. And I have to say, the first time that I washed this, it's started to come apart a little bit. So I looked online to see what other people said. I originally started out using the yellow one, soaked this under water like usual, and I wasn't finding that it was soft, and it was really kind of bugging me. And some people said to soak it under hot water. So I actually soaked this under super hot water and let it actually sit in really hot water for a while with this pink one because I thought that might soften it up a little bit more, but it doesn't. There's really no difference between these two. And these are not inexpensive. If you get this little trio, it is $36 American, and that would be about $50 Canadian for this set. Save your money. You get 3 of them, that is correct, but spend that money on a beauty blender instead. It is far superior. Now, I have heard some people say that they really liked a pure sponge. So there is a pure sponge that is pink, although it looks a slightly different shape, like still this shape, but just slightly different angles to it, on their website that comes with one of their blending or one of their concealers. And I watched Kathleen Light's unboxing of her BoxyCharm box, and she was super excited because she loves the pure sponge. I think these are different sponges. I don't think anybody would try these if they have tried any other blending sponges and say that they really liked these. They're a little too hard. They make my makeup go on really sort of patchy. It's almost like they're taking makeup away as much as it's going on. Again, I've just never really had a good makeup day with these, which is really unfortunate. Because it would have been awesome to get 3 really good blending sponges in a subscription box at a time when I really need a new blending sponge. So my final thoughts are this. If you have the money in your budget to buy the original Beauty Blender, buy the original Beauty Blender. I am most likely going to bite the bullet and go out and buy a new one of these, just the regular pink Beauty Blender, because it just makes my makeup look lovely. If you don't have room for this in your budget, you can work with the Real Technique sponge. This is sort of my number 2 in my ranking of these 3 different kinds of sponges. It's not as good as the Beauty Blender, but the value for it is really quite good. Your makeup will still look good, you just need to work a little bit more with it. And there are some people who absolutely love this one. So personal taste does come into play. I know some beauty gurus who, even though they could buy as many beauty blenders as they want, really like to use the Real Technique sponges. You might really like this, and it's a small investment to try it to see if you like it. I would stay away from the pure ones. I think that it is expensive and not as good, definitely not as good as the Beauty Blender, but not even as good as the Real Technique. So I really see no reason to buy these pure ones, which is unfortunate because, as I said, I really like them as a brand, but these are just a pass for me. So I hope you enjoyed this review. I hope you got something from it. I hope perhaps I might save you a little bit of money from going out and buying these. If you also receive these in your BoxyCharm subscription, would love to hear what you think of them. Is there something that I'm just not getting here? Have you found a way to make these work? Do you love these? I would love to hear that. Leave it in the comments below. If there is a sponge that is a super dupe for a beauty blender that is also at a cheaper price, let me know about that in the comments as well. If I can save some money, I am always up for saving some money. So that was today's review. If you have not subscribed but you would like to do so, you can click on the subscribe button, which I think is somewhere down here, or on my face at the end of the video. And if you liked this review, feel free to give it a thumbs up, and I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Bye.